What if the moment you win a negotiation, you actually lose money? Get ready to discover the invisible mental traps that cost smart people millions. Welcome to the murky world of irrational decision-making, where our own brains can become our worst enemy. Today, we're diving into the brilliant and groundbreaking book, The Winner's Curse: Paradoxes and Anomalies of Economic Life, by Nobel laureate Richard H. Thaler and his collaborator Alex O. Eames, often cited in his related works. Thaler, one of the founding fathers of behavioral economics, takes us on a thrilling journey through the anomalies that prove humans rarely behave like the perfectly rational agents assumed by traditional economic theory. By the end of this summary, you won't just learn about the pitfalls of auctions. You'll gain practical, attention-grabbing tools to master your own biases in investing, purchasing, and negotiating, saving yourself from countless costly mistakes. Let's unpack these mind-blowing lessons. Lesson 1. Avoid overpaying by discounting your optimism. This core concept explains a common phenomenon, particularly in auctions and competitive bidding, where the party who wins the bidding ends up overpaying. Why? Because the winner is often the bidder with the most optimistic, and thus likely highest, estimate of the item's value. When the actual value is revealed to be lower than their high bid, they realize they were the cursed winner. The curse is rooted in the fact that in competitive settings with uncertain valuations, the winning bid carries the most estimation error. Lesson: be acutely aware that the very act of winning a high-stakes auction often means you were the most wildly optimistic participant. Before placing your final bid, mentally discount your own estimate and deliberately consider what information everyone else might have missed that drove them to bid lower. Real-life story. Consider a major oil company bidding on a drilling lease. Many geologists provide estimates, but the winning company has the most aggressive estimate. When they drill and the oil reserves turn out to be on the low end of the other company's estimates, they realize they paid a premium for a lease that wasn't worth the cost. The best defense is a disciplined, conservative valuation. Lesson 2. Conquer the emotional value of what you own. The endowment effect is the behavioral bias where we tend to overvalue something simply because we own it. The moment you possess an item, whether it's a coffee mug, a stock, or a piece of property, your attachment and aversion to loss immediately inflate its perceived worth. This explains why people demand a much higher price to sell something than they would be willing to pay to acquire the exact same item. Lesson: ownership creates an irrational emotional bond and a mental anchor that distorts your sense of value. When selling, force yourself to adopt the perspective of an objective buyer. Ask yourself, if I didn't own this, how much would I pay for it right now? This detachment is crucial for setting rational prices and making smart liquidation decisions. Real-life story. I once had a client who refused to sell an old, underperforming stock in his portfolio. He'd owned it for 15 years and kept repeating, "It's worth more than the market is saying. I know it." Objectively, the business fundamentals had deteriorated, but his long-term ownership had created a deep, endowment bias. Once he sold it and invested the proceeds in a better performing asset, he regretted not breaking the emotional bond sooner. Lesson 3. Treat all money equally, regardless of its source. Mental accounting is the practice of assigning different values and purposes to different sources of money. Even though money is fungible, it has no labels. For instance, people often treat a tax refund, found money, differently than their paycheck, earned money, spending the refund frivolously while being very careful with the paycheck. They also categorize money into pots, like a vacation pot versus a retirement pot, refusing to use one for the other, even if it's financially logical. Lesson: Recognize that your brain creates imaginary labels for money, but your bank account treats all dollars equally. A dollar won in a lottery is exactly the same as a dollar saved from grocery shopping. To improve your financial health, treat all income and wealth as part of one large, fungible account. Don't waste bonus money on trivial items while carrying high-interest debt. Real-life story. A young couple won $1,000 in a sweepstakes. They immediately decided to spend it on a new TV, calling it their fun money. At the same time, they were paying 20% interest on a credit card balance that was larger than $1,000. Financially, the optimal move was to use the fun money to pay off debt, saving hundreds in interest. Their mental account, the fun pot, prevented them from making the smart, logical choice. Lesson 4. Don't let the pain of loss paralyze you. The concept of loss aversion demonstrates that the psychological pain of a loss is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure derived from an equivalent gain. Losing $100 hurts far more than winning $100 feels good. This deep-seated fear of loss leads to status quo bias, reluctance to sell losing investments, and excessive conservatism in decision-making. Lesson: the fear of realizing a loss often leads to the mistake of holding onto a bad decision. In investing and business, this means people hold onto losing stocks hoping they'll break even, rather than cutting their losses and investing the remaining capital elsewhere. To conquer loss aversion, focus on future potential gain rather than past loss. Ask, will this decision maximize my wealth from this point forward, regardless of what I've lost already? Real-life story. An investor bought a technology stock that immediately dropped 40%. For 2 years, he refused to sell it, even though new, better opportunities arose, because he didn't want to take the loss. He was paralyzed by the pain of acknowledging the 40% drop. Had he sold it and immediately invested in the better opportunity, he would have recovered the loss and made a significant profit. His fear of realizing the past loss caused a much greater future loss of opportunity. Lesson 5. Use framing to influence decisions and protect yourself. Thaler emphasizes the concept of framing, showing that the way information is presented, or framed, can drastically change a person's decision, even if the underlying objective facts remain the same. For example, people are more likely to buy a product labeled 90% fat-free than one labeled contains 10% fat, despite the descriptions being identical. Framing exploits our biases, particularly loss aversion. Lesson: in your communications, understand that a sure gain is more attractive than a probable gain, and a sure loss is more painful than a probable loss. When selling, frame the benefit, what they gain, and when negotiating discounts, frame the cost of missing out, what they lose. Most importantly, when evaluating an offer made to you, mentally reframe it to neutralize the emotional language used by the seller. Real-life story. A hospital was trying to get patients to sign up for a preventative screening test. When the information pamphlet stated that the test has a 95% chance of early detection, patient sign-up was modest. When they changed the framing to state, by skipping this test, you risk a 5% chance of late detection and treatment, sign-ups jumped significantly. The small change in wording, shifting the focus from a positive outcome, gain, to avoiding a negative outcome, loss, exploited loss aversion to drive better patient behavior. That's a wrap on our deep dive into Richard H. Thaler's essential lessons on behavioral economics. We've covered the danger of the winner's curse, the emotional trap of the endowment effect, the illusion of mental accounting, the paralysis of loss aversion, and the power of framing. Now it's your turn. Which of these biases do you feel has cost you the most in your own life? Have you ever won a bid and instantly regretted it? Tell us your stories in the comments below. If these lessons resonated with you, and you're hungry for more exciting breakdowns of essential books that will level up your decision-making, you need to check out the rest of our videos here at the Summary Shelf. We distill complex knowledge into practical, binge-worthy lessons just like this one. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Summary Shelf for more mind-expanding content, and hit that notification bell to stay tuned. See you in the next summary.